Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you on a beautiful October the 11th, 2016. And also, we are the number one media company in the United States with iHeartRadio. So thank you very much for that. And also, Charlton and Big C Sports has been voted number one in the universe. We got to the Milky Way galaxy in different solar systems, Big C. So thank you to you good old boys down south, and no hanging chats on this one, Big C. Also want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America. So thank you so much for tuning in, as well as you good old boys in London, England, and Paris, France. And of course, I'm not going to chew this up. Oh, Canada. And I'm telling you, I think if they just let me go 2 verses, I think I'll be okay, right, Big C?
They're probably getting over that turkey hangover from that Thanksgiving and everything. That L-tryptophan is working on everybody. And they probably washed it down with a little moonshine. You know you got a few backwoods country
boys up there. You got to have that.
I'm quite sure that they make their home back up there.
And that's funny. I was talking to some of my Native American friends the other day and talking about his Columbus Day. They said, well, what did he discover? We were already here, Big C. So I guess history doesn't matter. It just depends on whoever wins can write the story. And also, of course, hello to you great, good old boys in the United States of America. And Big C, so much is happening in the world of sports, in the world of politics, in the world. There's football going on. There's Major League Baseball in the playoffs.
Hey,
yeah.
Can you keep your hands to yourself, man?
I'm trying to.
Me, man, okay?
I'm trying to. But this is a smorgasbord of sports. And in fact, the Sacramento Kings, were downtown by the arena. They had their first game last night against a team outside of the country. So instead of bringing in someone close by, they brought a team called Maccabi Haifa. I believe I said that right. They won at 135-96. Golden One Center is absolutely a gorgeous place to watch a basketball game. But I want to get on your thoughts real quick, Big C. And last night, if you watch the Cubs and the Giants play, Chapman throws over 100 miles per hour. The guy throws laser beams all the time. But the Giants actually hit him last night, and that gives the Giants some hope this year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you got to look at the 2 playoff games that the Giants won, Charlton. It took them the last inning of both of those games, the game against the Mets and the game against the Cubs last night. I ironically woke up in the middle of the night and the game was still going on.
Yeah, that's funny.
I'm like, okay, am I dreaming or what? But, a 13th inning walk-off home run to win that game for the Giants, great to keep Major League Baseball going and the series going.
Yeah.
But you have to concern yourself, Charlton, you don't have enough consistent hitting when you're the Giants.
Yeah.
That's been their problem. The Cubs can play long ball with anybody.
Yeah.
And the Giants, when you look at it, the Giants are 10-0 when they're facing elimination games in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they're prepared to play where they put that monkey on the other team's back. When you think about it, that goat was probably bellying up last night.
that goes. He's cutting his teeth right now, Big C. And you got to feel for the good old boys in Chicago when they tied the game, when they brought in Romeo and he couldn't close it out. The ball went right over that. They have looks like a car on the outside of the left field. If they put an SUV, Big C, like the one you drive, that ball would have stayed in the park, Big C. So the Giants That's true, Big C. There would have been mud. You should have parked your Escalade out there, Big C. And speaking of Escalade, I just want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac Escalade, home of the all-new, the beautiful, luxurious Escalade. I think they're actually coming out one, Big C. They actually have a mud-colored paint. If you've never heard of that before, you don't have to go through all the pains of driving through the swamps, Big C.
I plan on copyrighting that, so I might have to take on sponsor time.
Yeah.
So you can't copy what somebody's already done. Well, I guess they can. ESPN is
ESPN did it.
Time, so.
Yeah. That's funny, Big C. Cadillac's coming up with a custom mud-tainted paint job. I think it's going to be gorgeous. But also, just thinking about what the Giants did last night, you got to look at what Bochy has done just for this team. I mean, Bochy can be nervous like anybody else, but he never shows it. He never gets out of his element. He never really shows anything other than a steady calmness. And I'm sure Big C, he has just as much nerves going on in him as anybody else. But by the time they hit Chapman and you realize this team is beatable, I wonder how the Cubs respond to that tonight. Obviously, it's a must-win game for the Giants. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, this series, Charlton, reminds me of the University of Tennessee football team.
Yeah.
That you found ways to win, and, the teams get better as you play along. And the Cubs, you didn't win 103 games by fluke.
Yeah.
During the regular season, and they've up to 105 now in the playoffs. So, this is a scenario where, yes, you can always win that game, on luck, on, something that happened, but consistent baseball is what makes champions.
Yeah.
And the Cubs have been consistent all year long. They bring out a pitching staff second to none. Now, the Giants, I don't know who they're going to answer in the next game, but, Baumgartner, the guy's a beast. We talked about him every game that he's been in.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're 10-0 facing elimination games. Will that streak continue, or will the Cubs magically bring it to an end?
Well, I hope that the Giants can, just for the sake of seeing more baseball, Big C, it's always great when you have this time of year where everybody understands why baseball is such a popular game, because you have guys, it all means something. And I think you're right. Maybe there are too many games in the regular season, Big C. It'd be nice if they didn't have 161 games. Maybe they won 120 games, but you could actually rest some players. But I think when you watch Chapman throw, it all depends on him. He's not used to coming in the eighth inning, Big C, and that's when they brought him in. He's used to coming in, throwing 3 hard innings, but they had to force him into coming up with a greater performance last night. Now, also, when you look at the Boston Red Sox, a great organization, and Big Papi, at 40 years old, he's actually called it quits. Not the way he wanted to go out, but you got to appreciate all the years in the great baseball that he gave the great people of Boston, Big C. Your thoughts on Big Papi?
Well, Charlton, it's not like he's leaving on the bottom. He has 3 World Series championships, 3 rings he's walking away from the game with. He probably had the greatest season of any 40-year-old player in baseball history. 121 RBIs, 36 home runs. Just a phenomenal season, Charlton.
Yeah.
In the MVP race also. But, they took a bow out of the playoffs. And, when you think about the way they left the game, Terry Francona, who is now the manager of the Cleveland Indians, was the manager of the Boston Red Sox when they broke their 86-year curse, not winning a World Series. And he and Theo Epstein were let go by the team after winning a couple of World Series. I guess, in the world of sports, owners and teams are not happy with success.
Yeah, that's true.
You get teams who win championships.
Yeah.
A couple of years later, they're talking about firing the coach. You can't win every year. You look at the New York Giants with Tom Coughlin.
Yeah.
He was fired after winning 2 Super Bowls. Francona was fired in Boston after winning 2 Super Bowls. But you got coaches that hang around forever, a la Jeff Fisher, who has never won a Super Bowl.
That's true.
So when you think about that, but you look at baseball, when we talk about this marvelous time of the year, you look at the stadiums of the teams that are still playing. The Jacob, in Cleveland, beautiful facility.
Yeah.
Sitting there, and this has been a city that's been starved for championships for decades. And the Cleveland Cavaliers won the what do you guys call that? Where they wear the shorts and run them down the court?
They call it basketball out here, Big C.
Okay.
Some people call it, Tom Brady forgot what they call it also, because last thing I heard about him is he was down there streaking on some beach someplace on the planet, Big C.
Well, he's like a Southern boy. You go out there, you don't need a baby suit when you go swim.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. That is so funny.
But when you look at the success of Cleveland, that they've had this year baseball-wise, Francona turning around that franchise, you really feel good about him, because this is a guy who's been around the game, who's paid his dues, who was unjustly let go by Boston. You have 1 or 2 bad seasons, and they say that you're done. But he's proved that he's a quality manager in baseball, Charlton, turning around that drubbing Cleveland organization, putting them in the championship series.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be a great series between Cleveland and Toronto.
Yeah.
When you think about it, Toronto hits the long ball as good as anybody in baseball right now.
Oh, Canada. Now, let me tell you this, Big C. Let me just interject real quick. You know how we talk about things and they tend to come to pass, like, you guys catfishing and ESPN's doing this skit. We've been singing, or I've been chewing up the Canadian national anthem all year. But who's in the playoffs, Big C? From Canada, right?
we got Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, and Juan Bautista follows us. They
won it twice back in the 90s, Charlton. And the last one was when Joe Carter hit that epic home run off of Mitch Williams in Sky Dome in Toronto.
Yeah.
So the Jays have been, and the thing about playing the Jays, Charlton, when we look at the other teams in the playoffs, we look at San Francisco, we look at Chicago, we look at Cleveland, we look at the Dodgers and the Nationals.
Yeah.
Okay? Those are area teams by a state or by a city that have a following.
Yeah.
You look at the Blue Jays, you got the entire country of Canada. not playing one province.
Yeah.
You're playing the entire country. They represent an entire nation. So when you talk about fanfare and backing of an organization, you got everybody in Canada pulling for the Toronto Blue Jays, Charlton.
And speaking of everybody pulling for somebody, I want to tell you that this segment is also sponsored by your California Lottery. What can a buck do for you, Big C? And I was telling this story, last night I was actually driving to get some gas.
I bought a pack of gum today.
Oh, you bought a pack of gum?
You kept my breath fresh at least, so if I got pulled over, I can pass the breathalyzer.
Well, that's funny, Big C. The irony here is that I was driving to get some gas last night about midnight, and I saw this good old boy pull up. He was in the kind of car that you drive, Big C. What's it called? That Rolls Royce? Is it the Phantom? The one with the bird that comes off the top of it, Big C? Well, I said, my goodness, brother, what do? You look like my partner, Big C. He said, well, I own a casino. I said, well, you're not Big C because he don't put his money in casinos, Big C. But this brother had the Rolls Royce Phantom. That's a good car. How do you guys afford to pay cars that have, I think you could buy a house for the price of that car, Big C?
Well, you got to have a house to own that car. Okay. It is a very luxurious ride. It's a car that's special ordered.
Yeah.
You have to pay for it before they do it.
That's why they wouldn't let me test drive it, Big C.
You're not going into the dealership haggling on the showroom floor. That car is paid for 6 months in advance before that car is built.
Okay, so now I'm not so offended. I walked into the Rolls Royce dealer over in the Bay Area. I told them I wanted to test drive, and they said, let's see your bank account. And I said, for what? So now I understand, Big C. It was not discrimination, but they kind of have a cue who can buy what. And also, speaking of buying what in the Bay Area, Big C, some of the breaking news that came out of the South Bay in the San Francisco, well, not San Francisco anymore, but in the Santa Clara region, is finally they've caught up to what you've been talking about, which is starting Colin Kaepernick over Gabbert. Now, I know the 49ers have a bad team this year, and people are saying, well, can Kaepernick be any better than Gabbert? And all I say is look at the record and let the record speak. Sometimes you let the facts speak. I think if they protect the guy and block for him, he's going to play a lot better than Gabbert. But he also gives them more dimension when he decides to throw the ball or run the ball downfield. And remember, for all the people that said he didn't look too good in his last couple of games, that's usually what happens when you have shoulder surgery, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, is Blaine Gabbert hurt?
Not that I know of, but
other than mentally,
right?
So I mean, this is the Bay Area media.
Yeah.
Now I have to put their tail between the legs and walk away with some shame and embarrassment. Here it is. They berated and belittled this guy all year long.
He had surgery, Big C. He had 3 surgeries. Okay, 3, not 1, 2, but 3.
Even think about the 3 surgeries. If you look at the last preseason game, and everybody's talked about over the first 5 weeks of the season that he was not ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now he played the last preseason game, and statistically, in the last preseason game, was better than any game that Blaine Gabbert has played this year in the regular season.
Yeah.
So if he wasn't ready and he outplayed Blaine Gabbert in the preseason, so what was Blaine Gabbert if Colin Kaepernick wasn't ready? So, you got to look at this guy. I think the locker room trusts him, Charlton. Yeah. And that's all that matters. We in the media will always draw parallel and lines on players.
Yeah.
A lot of it's accurate. But we don't always know the inner workings of the locker room. But when you look at the locker room, there's not been one player since Kaepernick has not been a starter that has turned on him and has talked negatively about it.
No, I think you're right.
They've been waiting for that time for him to come back because they know as a team. And when you're an athlete, and I was fortunate enough to do that for 1 or 2 years of my life, you know which quarterback you want in the lineup, and you voice it to coaches. Yeah. Nowadays, with these contracts and everything, some situations become difficult. But players know who give you the best chance of winning. Yeah. They went on with the struggle of the media and management saying, Gabbert's our guy. If Gabbert was that good, Jacksonville wouldn't have let a former first-round draft pick go for a fourth-round draft pick. Yeah, and that's so true, Big C. You're right about that. So, when you talk about quarterbacks, even New England, the media's talking about New England can demand a number 1 pick for Garoppolo. They got one for Castle a decade ago. Yeah. And they get the same. But when you look at the situation in San Francisco, and I'm going to compare it a little bit to the Miami Dolphins, because the Miami Dolphins right now are talking about their offensive line as the reason for the struggle of Ryan Tannehill that he can't complete a pass. Well, because the O-line has to throw the ball, right, Big C? They have to throw the ball, too, and block. He's the one throwing the ball, they're blocking, and if he can throw the ball, that means he's standing upright. So, at some point, you got to point a finger at the quarterback, and that's the same thing you've had in San Francisco with Blaine Gabbert. I mean, when you're only throwing at a 48 to 50% clip in the NFL, you can't play high school football.
Well, that's very true.
and in 4 games, Charlton, he's only thrown 4 wins. He's thrown 4 touchdown passes on the season.
Yeah.
That's not going to get it done at the NFL level. I don't care if you're the best team or the worst team in the league. You cannot have played 5 games and only have 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
You got a decent receiving core. You can't run the ball, you can't throw the ball, but you're blaming it all on the offensive line when you got a wide open receiver that you overthrow.
Yeah, and you're right. You're right, Big C. And also the Monday night game last night, and we'll touch a little bit on something that's going on in politics, but the Monday night game, a lot of people didn't watch it because they're watching baseball, but you had the Buccaneers beating the Panthers again, and they got a close win with the field goal 17-14 on Monday Night Football. And Jameis Winston, he was 18 of 30, 219 yards, Big C. And then Cam Newton, we've been telling people since that game that he played at Denver that the man is concussed. It took the Panthers about 2 weeks to figure it out. And I hate to see a young man's health being put in jeopardy, but that's a situation where they put the team before the player, and I don't think that's fair, Big C, to Cam Newton. And now they're talking about him riding around on some scooter without a helmet. But I tell you, this is a kid that you got to keep him healthy, Big C. The Carolina may not make the playoffs this year, but you still want a quarterback like Cam Newton to stay healthy. Your thoughts on him, Big C?
Well, him doing a little recreational activity, Charlton. He was on a little trike.
Yeah.
Is what he was riding on, a 3-wheel apparatus.
Yeah.
And people are making all of this hoopla. He gets hit harder on the football field than if he had fell off this little trike onto the ground, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, his health as a professional athlete is what's most important. The media starts nitpicking at things when they can't create a story, when they can't tell you how the game evolves or what the real problem is with the team.
Yeah.
So you nitpick around little certain areas and you try to find out something that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Cam Newton, this is not the first time he's ridden this thing down the street. It's just like when Colin Kaepernick knelt down and sit down in San Francisco. Because they saw him in a uniform, it was not the first time he had done it. He's been doing it for 2 weeks prior to sitting down in the 3rd preseason game. But the media, because we do not have sports-savvy broadcasters and writers anymore, Charlton. We got all these young so-called journalists coming out of college or coming from a news station that's telling you about a sport that was going on long before they were born. They can't tell you anything that happened prior to 1995. Charlton, when you realistically look at it.
Yeah, well, Big
You
Z.
got all these pretty faces, male and female.
Yeah.
But they're there as showpieces. Anybody can put a dime on TV.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
I would rather have 6 cents of knowledge versus looking at a dime, Charlton.
Well, Big C.
And that's what we're getting nowadays.
Yeah.
So we get these empty stories about athletes, about teams. Give me some insight. Educate me when I'm listening to you, when I'm watching you. Tell me something I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's what replays are for, to tell me what's going on. I don't need you elaborating on a replay that we're both watching. I can make that decision on my own.
Yeah, especially after you had half a sip of moonshine, you could definitely make those points on your own. And speaking of moonshine, this segment is also sponsored by United Labor. Guaranteed $100,000 life insurance policy with no medical questions. We're also endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports. We are also looking to hire over 1,000 licensed life insurance brokers to help put Americans back to work again. So tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports when it comes to getting your work done and also getting insurance. So Big C, another thing I want to ask you, we talked about people being fired all the time. Now you look at the Baltimore Ravens, they fired Mark Trestman as offensive coordinator and replaced him with the quarterback's coach, Marty Mornhinweg. They're trying to cover the fact that they don't have a running game. That's not really the offensive coordinator's fault. They also lost Smith. He's been hurt also. They're trying to cover up for Flacco, who can only do so much, but they just have to get players in there. And they got a lot of injuries, Big C. It's not the offensive coordinator's fault. Your thought on that, Big C?
Well, Charles, let me understand. When was the last time Marty Mornhinweg was ever successful?
Yeah, tell me.
Okay, he's been a coordinator, he's been a head coach, and he's been fired from every one of those jobs.
Yeah.
So this recycling in the NFL is a bad thing for the business. The Marty Mornhinweg is a white coach, been around the NFL for a long time. You're going to tell me there's no qualified African-American coordinators around that are not... Think about this, Charlton. When we look at the skill positions in professional football over the last 30, 40 years, they've been dominated by African-Americans. We're talking about receivers, we're talking about running backs, we're talking about defensive backs, linebackers, defensive ends, okay? Tight ends. When we look at the level of Hall of Fame players that are being inducted over the last 20 years, they've been dominated by African Americans, even offensive linemen, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me none of these guys have the qualifications after being a 10, 12-year all-pro player to go out and teach your technique and knowledge and pass it along to the younger players of the game. And not only that, Charlton, we're talking about ethically relating to players.
Yeah,
just
I
like
agree.
we talked about on the college level. You have to ethically relate to people. And that's what's not transpiring. When you hire an old guy who is 68 years old and you tell him to go out there and tell some 23-year-old old lineman how to play, or some 25-year-old quarterback how the game was played in 1962, it doesn't translate, Charlton. You have to bring in some fresh blood into these leagues, give people a chance. It's like a couple years ago when the Chargers hired Mike McCoy as a young head coach who had been an assistant in Denver. You have to do that, even though they haven't had success, but you got to look at the catastrophic injuries that they had. But if you cannot relate to players based on an age basis, you've lost a lot between these gender generations and stuff. So that's what the NFL has to do. I mean, the Rooney Rule is a joke.
That's true.
We're going to interview the black guy after we hire the white guy. So we at least gave an interview.
That's funny.
There should be some change in the NFL. Let's look at some of these newer players who have retired in the last 5-10 years. Give them an opportunity because they have great knowledge. We can put a couple of them in the broadcast booth, but if they can translate some of their experience, Charlton, onto the playing field, then you have a great turnaround in talent. They can relate and see through those players' eyes what's going on. But when I'm a 68, 70-year-old man, I don't understand. I'm having a hard time not being worried about my prostate, okay?
TMI, Big C, TMI. But speaking of prostate, every man get your prostate checked. Is an easy, preventable disease. Just got to go to get a checkup. You can learn about that on Charlton and Big C Sports also. And also, Big C, when you talk about just a few other things that happen around the league, we're talking about Tony Romo was expected to have an MRI with Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, believing the results would show that the quarterbacks, he had another injury, obviously, but they just need to put this talk about bringing Romo back, just put it to the curtain. Let this guy Prescott lead that team.
Who's leaking all this information?
I think who is? Maybe it's Tony Romo.
Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones. Okay, if you think about the Dallas Cowboys this year, Jerry Jones has become irrelevant, okay? Because he can't meddle with the team. You got two young African-American stars, and he's not used to that. He's not used to having an African-American quarterback that's a star. He's had an African-American running back, and Dennis Smith has been a star. But he has two young African-Americans who are dominating his team, and when Dez Bryant is in, he has three. So, he's had to take a back seat because their talent and their play is speaking for itself. He can't go in and make an excuse. Because they're winning. And that's what he's so used to doing, is holding a press conference of excuses. Now he's got these winners out there, so now he's got to hold a press conference to tell you about a player that's not playing. Think about it. If you're a proud owner, you want to talk about the success that you're having, not about your boy who is sitting over there not playing, getting $1 million a week, sitting on the bench. Okay? That's irrelevant in the success of the team. Talk about how this team has evolved under the leadership of a rookie running back and a rookie quarterback without your top receiver, with half your top offensive line being hurt the first part of the season. But these guys have taken the Cowboys' reign and are running with it. But you want to have some asinine press conference talking about your broke-down quarterback saying that he's ready to play.
Well, think about this story, too, with the Denver Broncos general manager, John Elway. He says that doctors have ordered Coach Gary Kubiak to take a week off after experiencing some migraine headaches when they were playing against the Falcons. I think most of the headaches were caused by that Falcons passing game, but make no fun about it because people can have migraines. But I think obviously you want to keep coaches healthy and the safety, and we got to make sure that we keep all of our guys healthy. If you're having some type of pain, just go get a doctor's checkup and make sure. But I think I congratulate Elway on doing that. They push coaches so hard, Big C. We talk about players being stressed and overworked, but I just want to make sure that Kubiak is healthy. I believe he also had, isn't he the same Kubiak that passed out when he coached for Houston back in the day, Big C, a couple years ago?
He's the same one who passed out on the sideline. So this is a great measure by the team, looking at the coach's health, first and foremost. This team, the Denver Broncos will have a solid season. But you want to make sure that the coach, just like any player's health, is first and foremost, Charlton. We get lost in the game of sports thinking the game is the only thing that matters. But it's the players as individuals. We understand that pro football is a factor. And it's been spoken many times that the teams really don't care about players. And Charlton, Honestly, they don't. They care about the bottom line.
The bottom line.
Because players are recyclable. You get rid of one, you got another one in its place, bigger, faster, and stronger. And this is every year.
Yeah.
We see players who hang around the game for a decade. We fall in love with them. We know them by name. We've seen them for years. We've grown up with them, grown old with them.
Yeah.
But when a new player comes along, it's inevitable, Charlton. And every year the NFL is going to employ at least 300 new players.
Yeah, that's
every
true.
Year.
That's
and
true, Big
every
C.
year, when they employ another 300 new players, they're going to unemploy 300 former players.
Well, Big C,
so
that's very
true. It's
true.
not like the league is growing, Charlton.
Yeah.
The league is just recycling. We just move in new parts. That's all that ever occurs in the NFL. Everybody who gets a job, there's an equal number who loses the job, Charlton.
Well, Big C, speaking of getting jobs, this segment is also sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. We're also looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers to help spread final expense and protect American families. So tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports when it comes to that. Also, Big C, there's a couple of casinos here in Northern California. They're on Indian reservations, and of course, we just had Columbus Day, ironically, Big C. But there's a couple of casinos we're going to be bringing on to sponsor Charlton and Big C Sports here in Northern California on the iHeart Radio Network. And why would someone advertise, Big C, on the iHeart Radio Network? We reach over 250 million people every week on the iHeart Radio. There's also over a billion people that are reached by the iHeart Radio Network, and that's a great deal when you have that in 1 month. And as you always say, Big C, how long would it take to hand out 1 billion business cards, Big C? You'd be really sweating by the end of that walk, Big C. What do you think?
I'm going to run up my credit card buying gasoline, Charlton. This thing is beautiful, but it does drink a little bit of gasoline to get around. So I might have to pour a little moonshine in the tank to see how that works. It'd be like ethanol running through.
That's funny. Just down here at the Golden One Center in downtown Sacramento, you can see a lot of activity in downtown. It's a lot different than when they had the stadium down at Arco Arena and Sleep Train Pavilion and Power Balance Pavilion. This is a great place. It's right next door to Macy's. So, Big C, when you're in town, you can go over there and get those ties that you always get for free, Big C. So I'm sure it don't matter where it's located. You got to be confident.
It's called an equal exchange, Charlton.
Okay.
The one that you came in with, you put on a new one, and you look good going out. No one pays attention to you.
No one pays attention. And also, Big C, I just want to cut on a couple of football games coming up. Some of the big matchups this weekend. You have the Denver Broncos at San Diego. Not a big game for anyone outside of the AFC West. Denver has to get back on track. The 49ers at Buffalo, I look for Kaepernick to have a good game. I don't know if they'll win because it's a long jet flight across the country, Big C. Buffalo start to turn things around, but I do think you're going to see some improvement. But the one thing that Kaepernick has to defend against, he's going against 12 defenders. He has the Buffalo Bills defense and the Bay Area media trying to stop him, Big C. That media might be on the field too, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
So what you're saying is he's playing in the Canadian football.
Yeah,
Buffalo's real close to Canada, so they might be throwing some Canadian rules on himself and put that 12th man out there like Texas A&M.
That is so funny, Big C. And now another game that I think has all the makings of deciding the land shift or the land makeup for the AFC West playoffs and the AFC West Championship, at least, because you have the Kansas City Chiefs playing at Oakland, and that game is on CBS Sports, a 105 start. And I just want to get your thoughts. Alex Smith, to me, he's not what he was even a year ago, and I think Carr is starting to play better like Alex Smith when he was leaving San Francisco. I'm looking at Oakland winning this game simply because they're at home. They already had a bad game against San Diego. I don't think they can afford another bad game, but if anyone can come in here and beat them, the Chiefs were tight with them last year in the fourth quarter at 20 apiece, and they had some interceptions last year. If Carr can cut down on that, I think the Raiders go out to another win, Big C. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, Charlton, one of the greatest rivalries in the history of the AFC when you think about the Raiders and the Chiefs. This game is always going to be a slugfest. Two organizations that generally hate each other.
Yeah.
But, when you think about the run that the Kansas City Chiefs had last year when they reeled off 11 straight victories, this is a team that can do that.
Yeah.
They were a little beat up at the start of the season, and they got off to a sluggish start. Last year, they were, 1-4 when they started the season?
Yeah.
So this is an organization that, and Andy Reid as a coach, who doesn't get rattled when his team has lost a few games. But, if you win a division game, Charlton, that's like winning 2 games.
Yeah.
Because you've closed the gap between you and your divisional opponent. So it's very imperative for Oakland to try to play defense. And we've looked at Oakland the past month.
Yeah.
And everybody's run the ball up and down the field on them and scored 30 points.
Yeah.
So this is a game that the Chiefs offense can easily get on track because this Oakland defense, and we talk about Khalil Mack, he only has 1 sack on the season, so teams have figured him out, or he just hasn't been motivated the first part of the season, and that secondary for the Oakland Raiders has been riddled all season.
Yeah, I think we're seeing how good Woodson was last year, even though they called him the old man. I think you've shown me that, Big C, that old man, you don't get to be old by being a fool. Is that what you showed me, Big C?
That's what it is. There's a lot of young wise men that are unemployed, you know.
That is so funny, Big C. Now, another great game. This is almost like a playoff weekend, especially to determine the power standings in the NFC. You have the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers going into Dallas. That's a 1:25 p.m. start on Fox Sports. That might be the NFL game of the week, at least for the NFC. Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, I think they've really shown how good they are, and they're playing without their top receiver in Dez Bryant, Big C. Does Aaron Rodgers have any opportunity going into Dallas and knocking up the Cowboys if Jerry Jones stays out of the way, Big C?
Well, Charlton, when you look at Green Bay, they haven't been that consistent offensively nor defensively. You know, they beat the Giants last week, and Giants haven't had a great offensive team. They've lost their past couple of games. But, you know, Dallas brings that different dimension to the game, the mobility of a quarterback. Eli Manning was a stationary target.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott has shown, he ran for a touchdown last week against Cincinnati. He's shown his mobility. So it's a multifaceted offense. And Jason Witten, the tight end for Dallas, has been rejuvenated.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's been around forever. I think since you were a teenager.
Yeah, that's a long time ago, Big C.
And they got the left side of their offensive line back last week, Charlton. Tyron Smith missed a few games at left offensive tackle, and he was out leading the sweep, you know, with Ezekiel Elliott. This big man can run at about 320 pounds.
Yeah.
Probably, if not the best offensive line, they're one of the top 3 left offensive tackles in the NFL. So Dallas now has their complement of players other than Dez Bryant, and I really think Dez Bryant being out, Charlton, helps Romo, because you got Beasley and Williams that are getting a lot of balls. And normally, if Bryant's in, he's commanding the ball.
Yeah, that's true, Big C.
So this allows this young quarterback to develop at a better rate, because now he's surveying the field and not locking in on a mouthy target, Charlton.
Well, Big C, I want to say this final segment was sponsored by BeneathHisWingsFoundation.org and also CYNN Entertainment. When it comes to promotion, Cynthia Evans, she's the best in Northern California. Also, thank you, Becca, the business Cupid, for your help. Big C, I want to get in on this thought here, because I think with so much happening in football, and you just talked about Colin Kaepernick getting the starting role back from Blaine Gabbert. I don't know why he lost it if you look at the win-loss record, Big C. And you look at these 2 top-plate quarterbacks, Indianapolis going into Houston. You have Andrew Luck, who's unlucky lately. He's going up against Osweiler for Houston. Both of these guys combined make about $200 million, Big C, but their teams are not very good. Now, I just want to ask your opinion. You were saying that both of these quarterbacks were overrated before the season began, and most of the media were saying that these guys are like can't miss. They're the best things since sliced bread. What do you see that the other prognosticators are starting to see after week 5, Big C?
Hold on a second, Charlton. I'm trying to erase a couple of numbers with my pencil here. Osweiler's getting 74 million, and Luck is getting 144 million. That's 200.
It's over 200. Yeah, that is just money.
$218 million between these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Now, Houston's coach, Dan O'Brien, came out and is questioning the move of Osweiler.
Yeah.
You know, he's questioning the organizational move. He's starting to see things the way John Elway saw things. Said the guy is not worth it.
Yeah.
He's played 8 games. I'm not giving him that money. Such as you see other quarterbacks around the league, Charlton, the teams are questioning. You know, Washington only gave Kirk Cousins a 1-year deal. They said it's worth a 1-year deal versus a long-term deal.
Yeah.
And so, you know, teams are looking at that. The Osweiler's under the same microscope now. He started out, he looked decent. He looked great. He looked decent, just like he did in Denver when he took over from Manning last year.
Yeah.
But 4 or 5 games in, everybody's figured him out, just like with Carson Wentz. People have figured him out. He's not mobile. He locks in on receivers. He's interception prone.
Yeah.
And in the last 2 games, you've seen a lot of that in Houston. So when you hear questioning, why did the organization make this move and just pencil him in as a starter when O'Brien drafted a kid out of Pittsburgh 2 years ago in the 3rd or 4th round as a quarterback.
Yeah.
And didn't even give him a chance.
That's true.
You know, they had a lot of hopes for this kid. But Osweiler, where do you go? You've given him all this guaranteed money.
He goes.
He with him the entire year.
He runs for the border, Big C. That's what he does because he knows he stole that. He's like Wells Fargo Bank. They steal everybody's money, Big C. That's what Osweiler's doing. And I want to get your thoughts on this big marquee matchup. Could be a preview, Big C. I know it's early. but could be a preview of the NFC Championship game. When you think about how good these teams are, you have the Seattle Seahawks at home versus Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Las Vegas has Seattle by 6. The over-under is 46.5. When you think about it, this game has so much that's going to line up to what happens and who plays where when it comes to the playoffs, because the Seattle Seahawks, they're 3-1. They scored 79, only giving up 54 points. Atlanta, they've scored 175, but they've given up 140 points in their wins, Big C. I think it bodes well for Seattle. But your thoughts on these two great quarterbacks? Both of them are $100 million quarterbacks, Big C. One's been to the Super Bowl twice, and the other, he's been to the bank a lot. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Russell's contract is only $88 million.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's probably. I didn't mean. I thought I was Wells Fargo Bank. I took $12 million out of his pocket. I'm sorry, Russell.
but you got to look at Matt Ryan and the Falcons. They're playing lights out right now.
Yeah.
But also they replicated that last year, Charlton, when they started 5-0. They're 4-1 right now, but they started 5-0 last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they couldn't find a way to get out of the locker room. But, I think this bye week is really going to help Seattle. It gives Russell Wilson a little more time to heal.
Yeah.
And, once he becomes mobile, he's not going to be 100% going into this game, maybe 85, hopefully 90%. But that defense in Seattle, the Legion of Boom playing there, that's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
Now, they have a very solid secondary and linebacking core. And I think last week Atlanta tipped their hand to what they want to do offensively.
Yeah.
You shut down, Denver shut down the two wideouts. They shut down Sanu and Jones last week.
Yeah.
But it allowed the running backs to come out and get one-on-one with the linebackers. Seattle's had a solid linebacking core over the past couple of years with Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
That's going to be the difference in the game, how they eliminate those running backs coming out of the backfield. I don't think they can develop a great running game against Seattle.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan is really going to be forced to throw the ball, but you got to look at quarterbacks who are forced to throw the ball 40-plus times a game.
Yeah.
What type of career did Dan Marino have when he was a quarterback in Miami?
Yeah.
He had an illustrious career statistically.
Yeah.
But he could never win a big game, Charlton. He couldn't get his team to the Super Bowl other than his second year in the league. So that's the scenario we're seeing right now with Matt Ryan. He's throwing the heck out of the football. He's throwing a beautiful football, great receivers. But can he consistently put it together to keep his team in the playoffs? Seattle's been there. They've been, they lost the game, but they've been a solid defensive team, Charlton. That's the key in the NFL. You got to play great defense.
Well, Big C, when you talk about defense, the Atlanta Falcons, and when you look at their record being 4-1, you would think this. They've given up more points than everyone in the league except for two teams, and they're tied with the 49ers that are 1-4 in the season, and only Tampa Bay has given up more than 142 points. That doesn't bode well going into the playoffs. Like you say, you could be hot all season, but you can't keep throwing the ball to 300- and 400-yard games going down to week 10 through 16. You're going to need a running game, but if your defense is being pushed around, that doesn't bode well for your chances going forward in the playoffs. They've even given up more points than the Raiders at 137 on defense, and we're always talking about the Raiders' defense being maligned. And the last thing I want to get on, Big C, before we get into just what's happening with Major League Baseball tonight and the Giants, and it's either go home or win this game, Big C. I think it's just going to be a great game to watch. Don't know the outcome, but if they can hit Chapman twice, we're looking at Game 5 in Chicago, Big C. But just your thoughts on the whole thing about football and how we're looking at concussion protocol. Even down in Arizona, Carson Palmer's going under concussion protocol. You have Cam Newton under concussion protocol, the two guys in the NFC Championship game last year. I think the NFL is getting it right in that they're making these guys do it. But I think in Cam Newton, it should have been done after week 1. Your thoughts on it? Is the NFL doing enough, Big C?
Well, I think the NFL is doing enough, Charlton, when you look at it in totality. This is a league that understands what its product is.
Yeah.
Even though they recycle players, they understand what their product is. They try to protect players, but they're taking the fun out of the game also. The game is violent by nature.
Yeah.
You can never make football safe. As long as the game exists, it will never be safe. And so you can't take the violence out of the game because the game is predicated on that. You have to hit people. You have to tackle people. You have to block people. That's the game in a nutshell. To try to take away the nuances of the game, then you eliminate the game, Charlton. You got to play flag football.
Yeah.
But I do like what the players do. What the NFL ever wants to do, if they want to increase the safety of the league, is that they're going to have to take revenue away from the league, Charlton, and that's by increasing the size of the field.
You just said a bad word, Big C. You just said a bad word. I mean, you're worse than Donald Trump when you're talking about taking away NFL players' money, Big C. That's not going to happen at all in this day and age.
I'm not talking about taking player money away, Charlton. I'm talking about making the field safe.
Yeah.
Safe.
Yeah.
This is the same size field that the NFL had when they started. when an offensive lineman can weigh 200, 210 pounds and be an offensive lineman, now you can't even play running back at 210 pounds, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, you got 350-pound offensive linemen, you got linebackers that are 260 pounds, run 4.5 40s, and will knock you out just for fun. So, players have outgrown the playing surface.
Yeah.
So you need to expand the field. And it's not going to tarnish records, Charlton, but it's going to increase player safety. But it will take seats out of stadiums.
Yeah.
If you take the NFL game and put it on the Canadian-sized field where they add an extra 11 yards, I'm not talking about adding length.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about adding width, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because if you're truly concerned about the safety of the players, then you need to add at least another 10 yards to the width of the NFL field to cut down on some of those angles that these players take these kill shots on, Charlton. Because when we see a player that's rendered unconscious, it's because the defender has had an opportunity to line him up. Okay?
Well, yeah.
And in a short box, he's lining him up and he's hitting him. If you remember the hit of Burfict last year in the playoffs with the Bengals and the Browns.
Yeah.
Or the Bengals and the Steelers.
And the Steelers, yeah.
He had a perfect line to hit him. And it's not that he's the only one that does that, but it's a common thing. And back in the 70s and 80s, it was an everyday thing.
Yeah.
You live for those kill shots.
Well,
but that's the thing that the NFL has to do. If they're really concerned about concussion, you can create any type of helmet and shoulder pad and flat jacket that you want to do.
Yeah.
But it's the field dimensions that are the most dangerous aspect of the NFL. And the NFL really has to take a serious look over the next decade how these players have outgrown this small box that they're playing in.
Well,
it's like putting too many mice in a box.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be crap.
Yeah. And I know you guys use mice to go fishing with, Big C. I hope I didn't give away your secret for catching the... I'm sorry, Big C.
They out there swimming until the catfish get them.
Okay, I'm sorry, Big C. In the last second, I want to talk to Big C. I was told you, I'm talking to some of the bigger casinos here on the West Coast, Big C. And with iHeartRadio and the reach is phenomenal. The number one media company in the United States, Charlton and Big C Sports is the number one sports talk show in the universe. We are intergalactic based on Big C and his good old boys down south in their votes. No hanging chads, Big C. I don't want to see any tape the way Donald Trump had some tape coming. So none of that boy locker room talk or whatever he calls it, Big C. But I want to ask you, in the last minute or so, why would a casino advertise on Charlton and Big C Sports and the iHeartRadio network, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at your marketing base, Charlton, the people that you're trying to draw from, you're in a general market, and those people know who you are in that general market. You have to expand your horizon. You have to expand your reach to bring in that new traffic because you're recycling consistent traffic, but you want to bring in that new traffic. It's just like when we go out and we find new bait to fish with.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that you told people about
I'm sorry, Big C. I'm sorry. I didn't say what kind of mice you use. I didn't say what kind of mice, Big C.
But you got to move your cheese every now and then.
No funny.
When you're looking for new territory, you move your cheese. And that's a great way to bring in new membership to your organization, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you look at iHeartRadio and the reach and the quality of broadcasting and programming that's existing there, it's a win-win situation.
Well, whether it's Ryan Seacrest, whether it's Usher or Katy Perry or Carrie Underwood, you have the iHeartRadio network, and I'm telling you, all over the country, all over the world, in fact, they follow Charlton and Big C Sports. So we're talking to some big casinos trying to go put some of the money back into the economy by getting them to understand you got to bring people in to have a good time, Big C. And I always say every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and all of his good old boys down south. And also something very important, keep our women safe. There's no tolerance for domestic violence. I don't care what Donald Trump says. That locker room talk is garbage. Imagine if it's your daughter or somebody you love. There's no tolerance for that. And boys and girls, we have to make sure everybody stays safe. If anyone's in trouble, just call 911. There's no such thing as boyhood locker room talk when women are assaulted by men who have a piggish behavior, Big C. So again, every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. And as we always say, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.